The first word she heard was liar. It slipped from her sister's mouth like venom, shaking the quiet grace of the dining room. The elegant crystal glass fell from Lila Anderson's trembling hand, wine splashing across the white linen like blood. The sound of shattering glass silenced every voice around the long oak table. "You've always been jealous," Veronica hissed, pointing a manicured finger at her. "Always trying to take what's mine because you can't stand being ordinary." Their parents sat frozen, caught between horror and calculation. Lila's voice trembled. "Veronica, he didn't even know you liked him. You called him a friend." But Veronica wasn't listening. "If she stays, I go," she said coldly to their parents. "Choose her or lose me." The silence was suffocating. Their mother looked at the floor. Their father, the great lawyer, cleared his throat and said nothing. 16-year-old Emily stared at her plate, too frightened to speak. Then came the verdict. "Lila," her mother whispered, "maybe you should stay away for a while. Let things cool down." A while became forever. 11 years later, the world still believed Lila Anderson was dead. That was easier, her family had decided, than explaining why they had erased her. In their quiet Connecticut town, gossip traveled fast. Better a dead daughter than a scandalous one. But Lila hadn't died. She had simply vanished, reborn under a different name, in a different life. Back then, she'd been 22, the dependable middle daughter. Neither the dazzling eldest like Veronica nor the baby everyone adored like Emily. She was the one who cleaned up after family parties, who remembered birthdays, who smiled when overlooked. Until she did the one thing her family couldn't forgive. She fell in love with a man her sister had noticed first. A man who saw her, not the perfect shadows she lived in. His name was Daniel Ross, a young associate at her father's law firm. Kind eyes, soft laughter, and a way of listening that made her forget the world. Veronica had introduced him at a summer barbecue, tossing her hair and calling him just a friend. Lila didn't mean to fall for him, but the connection was instant. They talked until the stars came out, trading stories about music, books, and dreams. When Daniel asked for her number, she hesitated only a moment. For 3 months, they dated in secret, late dinners, hidden walks, whispered phone calls. It was bliss wrapped in guilt. Lila told herself she'd confess soon. But before she could, Veronica found out through a friend. The explosion that followed burned through the entire family like wildfire. That dinner had been the end. The night her parents turned their eyes away, pretending neutrality, while silently siding with the daughter who shouted louder. "We can't have this kind of division," her father had said. "Better some distance." Her mother's eyes had been full of cold pity. "Let's give her space." Space became exile. Within weeks, Lila was gone from the family circle. No birthday calls, no Christmas greetings, no contact. Their friends stopped asking about her. The Andersons had 2 daughters now, not 3. For years, Lila lived in the shadow of that rejection, learning that pain, when nurtured, can grow into strength. Being written off either destroys you, or it sets you free. Freedom for Lila began in Portland. She and Daniel moved west, far from the whispers of Connecticut. They married quietly, with only his family and a few close friends present. Together, they built a small life, rented apartment, second-hand furniture, laughter in the kitchen. It wasn't easy, but it was honest. For a while, she tried to forget her past, tried to believe that love was enough to fill the hollow where family used to be. But deep down, she carried the wound. Not because they disowned her, but because they did it so easily. Then one morning, 11 years later, an envelope slid under her apartment door. Heavy cream paper, embossed in gold. The kind of invitation that reeked of money and hypocrisy. "Veronica Anderson and Charles Ashford, 3 request the honor of your presence." Her sister was getting married. The same sister whose last words had been "selfish little homewrecker." Inside was a note, written in her perfect cursive. "Lila, I know it's been a long time, but family is family. Mom says you're doing well in Portland. Hope you can make it. V." Lila almost laughed aloud. Family is family. How convenient. That evening, Daniel found her staring at the invitation. "You don't have to go," he said gently. "You owe them nothing." "I know," Lila murmured. "But I want to." She didn't want closure. She wanted clarity, to show them who they'd thrown away. For the next few weeks, she scrolled through Veronica's Instagram for the first time in years. A parade of perfection, charity galas, vacations, luxury. Smiles so polished they reflected light. Not a single photo mentioned her name. It was as if she had never existed. Scrolling through a post titled #Veronica finds her prince, Lila felt something icy settle in her chest. The caption read, "Grateful to be surrounded by love and family." The comments were full of hearts and praise. One photo showed her parents and Emily at Christmas, the caption, "3 generations of Anderson women." 3, not 4. Lila's hands tightened around her phone. 11 years of silence, and now, suddenly, they wanted her presence for optics. She wasn't being invited as family. She was being summoned as proof of Veronica's grace. She called Emily. The number still worked. "Lila," came the shocked voice. "Oh my God, how are you?" "I got Veronica's invitation," Lila said flatly. A pause. Then a sigh. "I told her to send it." "It's been 11 years, Lila. Don't you think it's time?" "Time for what?" "For me to play the reformed sister in her perfect wedding photos." "Don't do this," Emily pleaded. "She's happy now. She wants to move forward." "She wants a prop," Lila replied coldly. "A symbol of her generosity." Emily was quiet, then whispered, "She's changed." "No, Emily," Lila said softly. "You all did. Just not in the way you think." After hanging up, Lila sat at her desk, surrounded by framed awards and certificates, testaments to a decade of hard work. She had rebuilt herself from nothing, piece by piece. Daniel found her staring out the window. "Bad call." "She says Veronica wants to forgive me," Lila said bitterly. "Forgive me for falling in love." He took her hand. "You don't need their validation." "I don't," she said. "But I want to show them who I am now." "Revenge?" "No," she smiled faintly. "Truth." That night, Lila began to make a list, not of grievances, but of achievements. Every certification, every company she had helped, every milestone she had reached. 11 years of silence, and she had built something powerful in that void. What her family didn't know was that she wasn't just successful, she was influential. With her mentor-turned-partner, Sarah Montgomery, she had co-founded a consulting firm in Portland, Montgomery and Ross Solutions, a powerhouse in crisis management and corporate restructuring. Their clients included senators, CEOs, and celebrities who'd survived scandals because of her guidance. Her business thrived because she understood humiliation better than anyone. She had lived it. In 11 years, she went from the girl her family erased to the woman they'd have begged to hire. Annual revenue, $50 million. Staff in 5 cities. Global clients. Lila Ross, no longer Anderson, was someone her old world could never have imagined. And that was exactly why she needed to go back. Not to destroy, but to show them the life that grew out of their rejection. Before responding to the invitation, she called Marcus Hayes, her private investigator. "Find everything on the Ashford family," she instructed. Within days, Marcus called back. Their old money. Tight trust fund clauses, spotless reputations, on paper. And off paper? Skeletons plenty. Affairs, tax issues, questionable donations. Oh, and a morality clause in Charles's inheritance. Any scandal, he's cut off. Lila smiled. Perfect. 2 weeks before the wedding, she received a text from Emily. "Vivian really hopes you'll come." Then another. "Mom wants to know if you have any dietary restrictions." Lila ignored them. Instead, she finalized her plan, refined, simple, devastatingly elegant. She wasn't going to shout. She wasn't going to accuse. She was going to arrive. The morning of the wedding, Daniel kissed her forehead. "You don't have to prove anything," he murmured. "This isn't proof," she said. "It's presence." She packed her suitcase carefully. One silk navy dress, a file of documents, and her company's annual report. Sometimes the best revenge isn't vengeance, it's evidence. By afternoon, she was on a first-class flight to Connecticut. As the plane descended over Hartford, Lila gazed out the window. The familiar landscape looked smaller now, less intimidating. The house that had once defined her worth no longer existed in her world. By the time she arrived at the country club, the sun was dipping low over the manicured lawns. The valet took her car keys with a polite nod, unaware he was part of her quiet storm. At the entrance, a security guard frowned at her invitation. "I'm sorry, ma'am. This name has been removed from the list." Lila smiled calmly and handed him another card. His face went pale as he read it. Lila Ross, Senior Partner, Montgomery and Ross Solutions. "Tell them," she said softly, "that Lila Ross is here." Inside, the glittering crowd murmured over champagne. The first face she saw was Emily's, shock, then guilt, then a hesitant smile. "You came," she whispered, hugging her awkwardly. "You look incredible." "I know," Lila said simply. "Where's Mother?" "Inside with Veronica." "Perfect." Her mother emerged moments later, her pearls gleaming, her smile tight. "Lila Anderson," she said sharply, as if summoning a ghost. "Ross," Lila corrected. "It's Ross now." The room stilled. "Portland must be treating you well," her mother said, tone brittle. "It is," Lila replied. "You should visit sometime." Then came her father, red-faced and pompous as ever. "Well, the prodigal daughter returns," he chuckled. "You've caused quite a stir." "I tend to have that effect," Lila said coolly. And then Veronica appeared. Descending the grand staircase in a cascade of silk, she froze mid-step when their eyes met. "Lila," she whispered. "Hello, Veronica. You look consistent." The crowd tittered nervously. Her sister reached her, bouquet trembling. "Thank you for coming," she managed. Lila tilted her head. "Thank you for the invitation. I nearly didn't make it, especially after hearing I'd declined." Color drained from Veronica's face. Before anyone could speak, a deep voice broke in. "Veronica, darling, aren't you going to introduce us?" It was Charles Ashford Sr., the groom's father, distinguished, powerful, and suddenly uneasy. "Of course," Veronica said, her voice cracking. "This is my sister." "Wonderful to meet you," he said warmly. "Do you work in law as well?" Lila smiled. "Crisis management, actually. My firm handles corporate reputations." "Oh." His brow furrowed. "Which firm?" "Montgomery and Ross Solutions." The name hit the room like thunder. Murmurs rippled across the crowd. Charles Sr.'s expression shifted instantly, from curiosity to alarm. "You're that Ross?" Lila nodded calmly. "We've managed quite a few sensitive situations. You might have heard of the Peyton Corporation scandal." "I have," he said stiffly. "You handled that?" "I did." The silence that followed was absolute. Veronica's lips parted soundlessly. Her parents looked between them, confusion dawning into horror. "You're saying," her father began. "I'm saying," Lila said clearly, "that the daughter you erased built a $50 million company and rebuilt reputations for people you read about in the papers." She turned to Charles Sr. "Now you know exactly who your future daughter-in-law decided to exclude from her guest list." Gasps swept the crowd. Lila handed Charles Sr. her business card. "Pleasure meeting you. Feel free to reach out if your foundation ever needs discretion." Then she smiled at Veronica. "Don't worry, sister. I won't stay long. I just came to return the favor. You buried me once. I thought I'd remind you I'm still alive." The rest of the evening unfolded like a play no one had rehearsed. Whispers followed her everywhere. Her parents scrambled to rewrite history, insisting she'd needed time abroad. Emily, pale and shaken, tried to hold back tears. But Lila didn't gloat. She didn't need to. Her presence was enough. The room now revolved around the woman they once pretended didn't exist. Later, during the reception, Charles Sr. found her again. "Mrs. Ross," he said carefully, "would you consider consulting for the Ashford Foundation?" Lila smiled graciously. Send an email to my office. We'll review your proposal. By the end of the night, she had given out 12 business cards and received 5 offers. As she prepared to leave, Emily caught her arm. Lila, I'm so sorry. We didn't know. Lila's eyes softened. That's the point, Em. You didn't know because you never asked. Can we start over? Emily asked, voice trembling. Not for appearances. For real. Lila studied her, then nodded. Call me, she said gently. Call me, because you miss your sister. Driving away from the country club, Lila felt something shift deep inside her. For the first time in 11 years, she wasn't defined by what they did to her. She had taken back her story, on her own terms. 2 months later, she and Daniel celebrated their 10th wedding anniversary at home. Just the two of them, candlelight flickering on glasses of wine. To surviving exile, Daniel toasted. To turning it into gold, Lila replied with a smile. A week later, a small envelope arrived from Emily. Inside was a photo of her newborn daughter and a handwritten note. Her name is Lila. Tears filled her eyes as she set the photo on her desk beside her company logo. Forgiveness wasn't something she owed. It was something she allowed on her own timeline. And for the first time in years, Lila Ross felt utterly, completely free. If you value stories of respect, dignity, and justice, please subscribe. It means more than you know, and it lets me keep sharing the lessons life has carved into me.